Sophia should never imagine that working late to finish cleaning the executive offices of Romano Industries would place her at the center of a deadly conspiracy. But when she accidentally witnessed a secret meeting between the city's most powerful crime lord, Vincent Romano, and corrupt officials planning a murder, her life changed forever. What started as a simple mistake became a dangerous game of survival, trust, and unexpected love that would test everything she believed about good and evil. The 37th floor of the Romano Industries building was silent, except for the distant hum of the city below and the soft whir of Sophia's vacuum cleaner. At 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night, she was the only person left in the gleaming corporate offices, working overtime to make ends meet while her daughter Lucy slept safely at home with her grandmother. Sophia pushed her cart through the executive hallway, her reflection multiplied in the polished marble floors that cost more than most people's annual salaries. After 8 months of cleaning these offices, she'd grown accustomed to the understated luxury: Italian leather chairs, crystal paperweights, artwork that belonged in museums. The wealthy lived differently, surrounded by beauty that most people only glimpsed in magazines. At 28, Sophia had been supporting herself and 5-year-old Lucy for 3 years, ever since Lucy's father had decided that fatherhood wasn't compatible with his dreams of becoming a professional musician. The cleaning service job paid better than retail work and allowed her to attend community college classes during the day, slowly working toward a business degree that might eventually lift them out of survival mode. Tonight, she was running behind schedule because Mrs. Patterson, the day shift supervisor, had called in sick, leaving Sophia to handle both her regular duties and the executive floor. The extra work meant overtime pay she desperately needed for Lucy's upcoming dental appointment. So Sophia didn't mind staying late, even though the empty building felt eerily quiet after business hours. She approached the corner office, Vincent Romano's private domain, with practiced efficiency. As the CEO and majority owner of Romano Industries, Vincent Romano commanded one of the city's most successful import-export companies. The business press praised his strategic vision and aggressive expansion, though Sophia had occasionally caught glimpses of conversations and documents that suggested his success might involve more than just shrewd business practices. The office door was supposed to be locked after 6 p.m., but tonight it stood slightly ajar. Sophia hesitated, debating whether she should skip this room or proceed with her regular cleaning routine. The overtime pay decided for her. She needed every dollar she could earn. She knocked softly and called out, "Housekeeping," waiting for a response that didn't come. The office appeared empty, illuminated only by the city lights streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a spectacular view of the harbor. Sophia propped the door open with her cart and began dusting the massive mahogany desk that dominated the space. The office reflected its owner's personality: expensive but not ostentatious, powerful but not flashy. Family photographs were positioned strategically, showing a man who valued legacy and tradition. Sophia had seen Vincent Romano in person only a few times during her months of working here, but his presence had been memorable: tall, dark-haired, with a kind of commanding aura that made people step aside when he walked through a room. She was wiping down the bookshelf when she heard voices in the hallway, growing closer. Sophia glanced at her watch. 11:45 p.m. No one should be here this late, and she definitely shouldn't be caught cleaning the CEO's office outside of normal business hours. Panic fluttered in her chest as she heard a key turning in the lock of the outer office door. Sophia looked around frantically for somewhere to hide, knowing that being discovered here could cost her the job she couldn't afford to lose. The voices were clearer now. At least 3 men, speaking in low, urgent tones about something that sounded far more serious than late-night business meetings. "The shipment arrives Thursday at Pier 17, one voice said. "We need the Harbor Patrol diverted between midnight and 2 a.m. "What about the Federal Task Force?" another voice asked. "They've been sniffing around our operations for weeks." "Handled. Detective Morrison has been very cooperative since we had our conversation about his gambling debts." Sophia's blood chilled as she realized she was overhearing something that had nothing to do with legitimate business. She crouched behind a large desk, praying that whoever was coming wouldn't need to enter the private office. Her luck ran out when she heard the distinctive sound of Vincent Romano's voice cutting through the discussion with quiet authority. "Gentlemen, let's continue this conversation in my office where we won't be overheard." The door swung open, and light flooded the space as Vincent Romano entered with two other men. Sophia pressed herself against the back of the desk, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain they would hear it. She could see their feet through the gap beneath the desk. Expensive shoes that spoke of money and power, moving with the confidence of men accustomed to controlling their environment. "The Castellano family is getting suspicious," one of the visitors said. "They know something big is happening, and they want their cut." "The Castellanos will get what they deserve," Vincent replied, his tone carrying an edge that made Sophia shiver. "Which is nothing. This operation is ours, and anyone who interferes will be dealt with accordingly." "What about Judge Martinez? He's been asking questions about the harbor permits." "Judge Martinez will suffer a tragic accident this weekend," Vincent said with casual finality. Car crashes happen so frequently on mountain roads, especially during rainy weather. Sophia bit her lip to stifle a gasp. They were planning to murder a judge, a man whose only crime was doing his job too well. She pressed her hand over her mouth, fighting waves of nausea as the reality of what she was witnessing crashed over her. "The girl in the mayor's office has been useful," the third voice added. "She's provided the shipping schedules and security rotations. Should we eliminate her after the operation?" "Only if she becomes a liability," Vincent replied. "Dead bodies create investigations, and investigations create problems. We'll handle her when necessary." The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, detailing a complex criminal operation involving drug shipments, corrupt officials, and murder plans that would eliminate anyone who threatened their profits. Sophia learned more about the city's hidden power structure in those 10 minutes than she had in her entire adult life. When the meeting finally broke up, Sophia remained frozen behind the desk long after men left, afraid to move until she was certain they were gone. Her legs had cramped from crouching, and her mind reeled with the implications of what she'd heard. She was a witness to a murder conspiracy involving some of the city's most powerful people. Judge Martinez, whoever he was, would be dead by the weekend unless someone warned him. But who would believe a cleaning lady's word against Vincent Romano's? And what would happen to her and Lucy if these men discovered she'd overheard their plans? Sophia forced herself to stand on shaking legs, abandoning her cleaning supplies and her desperate need to escape the building. She left her card in Vincent's office and hurried toward the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly as if urgency could make it arrive faster. The elevator doors were beginning to close when a hand shot out to stop them. Vincent Romano stepped inside, and Sophia's world tilted sideways as she realized she was trapped in a small space with a man she'd just heard planning murder. "Working late tonight?" Vincent asked, his tone conversational, but his eyes sharp as they assessed her appearance. "Yes, sir," Sophia managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just finishing up the executive floor." Vincent studied her with the intensity of someone who missed nothing. Sophia could feel his gaze taking in her nervous fidgeting, her pale complexion, the way she avoided eye contact. She pressed herself against the elevator wall, wishing she could disappear entirely. "You forgot your cleaning cart," Vincent observed. Sophia's heart stopped. If he'd seen her cart in his office, he might suspect she'd been there during the meeting. I'll go back for it tomorrow. I was tired and..." "Don't." The command was quiet but absolute. "Don't move." The elevator continued its descent in suffocating silence. Sophia stared at the floor numbers, watching them decrease with a growing certainty that she would never see Lucy again. Vincent Romano had realized she'd overheard the conversation, and she was about to become another tragic accident in service of protecting his criminal empire. When the elevator reached the ground floor, Vincent placed his hand on Sophia's arm, not roughly, but with enough firmness to make his intentions clear. "Walk with me," he said. Sophia's legs felt like water, but she obeyed, allowing Vincent to guide her through the empty lobby toward the parking garage. With each step, she expected him to signal to hidden associates who would ensure her permanent silence. Instead, he led her to a silver Mercedes parked in the space marked "Reserved for CO." "Get in," Vincent said, opening the passenger door. "Please," Sophia whispered, tears beginning to flow despite her efforts to maintain composure. "I have a daughter. She's only 5 years old. She needs me." Vincent's expression shifted slightly. something that might have been surprise flickering across his features. "What's your name?" "Sophia Chun." "Sophia," he repeated, as if testing how it sounded. "I'm not going to hurt you, but we need to talk, and this conversation can't happen here." Sophia didn't believe him, but she also didn't see any alternative to compliance. She got into the Mercedes, her hands shaking as she fastened her seatbelt. Vincent started the engine and pulled out of the garage, driving through the empty streets with the calm efficiency of someone completely in control of the situation. "Where do you live?" Vincent asked. "You're going to kill me at home? In front of my daughter?" Sophia's voice broke completely. Vincent pulled the car over and turned to face her directly. "Sophia, look at me." She forced herself to meet his eyes, expecting to see coldness or calculation. Instead, she saw something she hadn't anticipated, concern, and perhaps even regret. "I'm not going to hurt you or your daughter," Vincent said, his voice gentle but firm. "But you heard something tonight that puts you in danger from people who aren't as reasonable as I am. I need to understand exactly what you know so I can figure out how to keep you safe." "Safe from who?" "From the men who were in that meeting. From their associates who clean up loose ends. From people who would kill you without a second thought if they suspected you could threaten their operation." Sophia stared at him, tried to reconcile the man planning murder she'd overheard with the person now promising to protect her. "You were talking about killing Judge Martinez." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Yes, I was." "And you're going to protect me from the people you were planning crimes with?" "It's complicated," Vincent said. "More complicated than you can imagine." Vincent drove Sophia to an all-night diner on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where truckers and shift workers gather for coffee and conversation, where two people could talk without attracting attention. He chose a corner booth that offered views of all entrances and exits, positioning himself so he could monitor the room while they spoke. Sophia sat across from him, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. She was too nervous to drink. The fluorescent lighting was harsh and unflattering, but also felt safer than the darkness outside. Around them, late-night workers grabbed quick meals between shifts, their conversations providing cover for the life-changing discussion about to unfold. "Tell me exactly what you heard," Vincent said, his tone businesslike but not threatening. Sophia recounted the conversation as accurately as she could remember, watching Vincent's expression grow increasingly grim as she repeated the details about Judge Martinez, the harbor operation, and the corrupt officials involved in conspiracy. "You have an excellent memory," Vincent observed when she finished. "I was terrified. Terror makes you remember everything." Sophia's voice was steadier now, though her hand still trembled slightly. "Are you really going to have Judge Martinez killed?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment, studying her face as if weighing how much truth she could handle. "Judge Martinez is a good man trying to do his job in a system that's corrupt from top to bottom. The people I was meeting with tonight want him dead because he's threatening their profits. And you? I want him to stay alive and keep doing his job." Vincent's answer surprised Sophia completely, which is why you overhear in that conversation is both a problem and an opportunity. Sophia struggled to process what he was telling her. "I don't understand." Vincent leaned forward, lowering his voice even though the nearest occupied table was well out of earshot. "What you witnessed tonight was a meeting between corrupt city officials and members of the Torino crime family. They're planning to eliminate Judge Martinez because he's been investigating their money laundering operations through the Harbor Authority." "Then why were you there?" "Because I've been working undercover for the FBI for the past 18 months, gathering evidence against the Torino organization and their government contacts." The revelation hit Sophia like a physical blow. Vincent Romano, the feared crime boss she believed was planning murder, was actually a federal agent working to prevent it. "Your FBI?" "Not exactly. I'm a civilian consultant working with a joint federal task force. My legitimate business operations give me access to the import-export industry where most of their money laundering occurs." Vincent's explanation was matter-of-fact, but Sophia could see the strain of maintaining his dangerous double life in the lines around his eyes. "So you're one of the good guys?" Vincent's smile was bitter. "The line between good and bad isn't as clear as you might think. I've had to do things. say things, be present for things that no good person should ever participate in. But yes, ultimately, I'm trying to stop people like the Torinos from destroying the city. Sophia felt her worldview shifting as she processed this information. The man she'd feared was going to kill her was actually risking his life to protect people like Judge Martinez. But that created new questions about her own situation. "What happens to me now?" she asked. "That depends on several factors," Vincent replied. "The Torinos don't know you exist or that you overheard anything. But if they discover there was a witness at tonight's meeting, they'll eliminate you without hesitation. So I stay quiet and pretend it never happened?" "You could try. But the problem is that your cleaning cart is sitting in my office, which will raise questions when the building maintenance staff arrives tomorrow morning. The Torinos will investigate any irregularities, and they're very good at connecting dots." Sophia's stomach sank as she realized the trap she'd inadvertently created for herself. "So what are my options?" Vincent was quiet for several moments, clearly weighing alternatives that all carried significant risks. "I can arrange for you and your daughter to disappear. New identities, relocation to another state, enough money to start over somewhere the Torinos will never find you. And leave everything behind? My grandmother, my school, Lucy's friends? Yes, it's not fair, but it's the safest option for both of you." Sophia thought about Lucy's life. The small apartment they shared with Sophia's grandmother, the neighborhood school where Lucy was finally making friends, the community they'd built through careful effort over several years. Starting over would mean losing everything they'd worked to establish. "What's the other option?" she asked. "You help me finish the investigation. We use the information you overheard to prevent Judge Martinez's murder and gather enough evidence to destroy the Torino organization permanently." Vincent's tone made it clear he understood the magnitude of what he was asking. "But that would mean staying in the city, maintaining your normal routine, and trusting me to keep you alive while we work together." "Work together how?" "The Torinos will investigate who had access to my office last night. They'll discover that you were the cleaning person assigned to that floor, and they'll want to question you. If you handle that questioning correctly, we can use their suspicion to our advantage." Sophia stared at him in disbelief. "You want me to let murderers interrogate me?" "I want you to tell them enough truth to be believable while withholding the information that would get you killed. It's dangerous, but it could also end this investigation in weeks instead of months." The choice Vincent was offering was impossible. Run away and lose everything she'd built, or stay and risk everything she loved. But as Sophia thought about Judge Martinez, a man she'd never met who was going to die because he'd tried to do the right thing, she realized there was really only one decision she could make. "If I help you, can we save him?" "Judge Martinez." "Yes, we can save him and prevent dozens of other murders the Torinos are planning." Vincent's voice carried conviction. "But I won't lie to you about the risks. This is the most dangerous thing you could possibly choose to do." Sophia thought about Lucy, asleep at home with no idea that her mother's life was about to change completely. She thought about her grandmother, who'd sacrificed everything to help raise Lucy while Sophia went to school. She thought about all the innocent people who would die if the Torinos' criminal empire continued to operate unchecked. "What do I need to do?" she asked. Vincent's expression shifted to something that might have been respect. "First, we need to establish a cover story for why you left your cleaning supplies in my office. Then we need to prepare you for a conversation you're going to have with some very dangerous people who will kill you if they suspect you're lying." As Vincent outlined a plan that would either save Judge Martinez or get them both killed, Sophia realized that her life as an invisible cleaning lady was over. She was about to become a key player in a deadly game where the stakes were measured in lives rather than money. But for the first time in years, she was also about to do something that mattered, something that could make a real difference in the world her daughter would inherit. Vincent's plan required Sophia to return to work the next day as if nothing had happened, while he arranged for her cleaning cart to be discovered by building security, with a plausible explanation for its abandonment. They agreed she would claim to have felt sick and rushed home, forgetting her supplies in her hurry to leave. The story had to be convincing, because the Torino organization would investigate every detail once they learned about the potential security breach. Vincent spent the early morning hours coaching Sophia on how to respond to questions without revealing information that would get her killed. "Remember," he said as they sat in his car outside her apartment building, "you're not trying to be clever or deceptive. You're just a working mother who got sick and made a mistake. Keep your answers simple and consistent." Sophia nodded, though her stomach churned with anxiety about what lay ahead. What if they don't believe me? Then we moved to contingency plans. Vincent's tone was grimly realistic. "But I'll be monitoring the situation, and I won't let them hurt you." "How can you monitor anything? You said they don't know you're working with the FBI." "They don't. But Vincent Romano has legitimate business reasons to be concerned about security breaches in his corporate offices. I can ask questions and demand answers without raising suspicion." As Sophia prepared to get out of the car, Vincent caught her arm gently. "Sophia, once this starts, there's no backing out. Are you certain you want to do this?" She thought about Lucy, still sleeping peacefully upstairs, unaware that her mother was about to risk everything to save strangers from people who kill without conscience. "Yes," she said, "I'm certain." The day passed slowly as Sophia attended her morning classes, trying to focus on business accounting while her mind raced through the scenarios Vincent had prepared her for. She picked up Lucy from school with forced normalcy, helping with homework and preparing dinner while constantly glancing at her phone for messages that didn't come. At 10 p.m., Sophia kissed Lucy goodnight and left for her shift at Romano Industries, her hands trembling as she badged into the building. The security guard, Frank, greeted her with his usual friendliness, but Sophia noticed he watched her more carefully than usual as she collected her cleaning supplies. "Heard you had some trouble last night," Frank said casually. Sophia's pulse spiked, but she forced herself to respond naturally. "Trouble? Left your cart on the executive floor. Building management found it this morning." Frank's tone was conversational, but his eyes were alert. "Feeling better today?" "Much better, thank you. I was so embarrassed about rushing out like that." Sophia managed what she hoped was an appropriately sheepish smile. "I hope I didn't cause any problems." "No problems, just protocol. Had to write up a report since it was on the executive floor." Frank shrugged as if it were routine. Mr. Romano's office manager wanted to know who was assigned to that area. "Oh." Sophia tried to look concerned rather than terrified. "Am I in trouble?" "Shouldn't be. These things happen." Frank's smile seemed genuine. "Just be more careful in the future." Sophia nodded and headed for the elevators, knowing that Frank's casual questioning was just the beginning. The Torinos would want more detailed answers, and they wouldn't be satisfied with simple explanations. She was cleaning the 23rd floor when her supervisor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared. Unusual since Mrs. Patterson rarely worked night shifts and had supposedly been sick the previous day. "Sophia, I need to speak with you," Mrs. Patterson said, her tone more formal than usual. They walked to an empty conference room where two men in expensive suits were waiting. Sophia recognized neither of them, but their presence immediately triggered every alarm Vincent had taught her to watch for. "Sophia, these gentlemen are from building security," Mrs. Patterson explained, though her nervous demeanor suggested this wasn't a routine inquiry. "They have some questions about last night." The larger man stepped forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Chun, I'm Mr. Torino. I understand you were feeling unwell last night." Sophia's blood froze as she realized she was face to face with members of the criminal organization Vincent was investigating. But she forced herself to remember her cover story and project the appropriate level of confused cooperation. "Yes, sir. I had a terrible stomach flu and had to leave work early. I was so sick I forgot my cleaning cart." Sophia let genuine nervousness color her voice while being careful not to oversell her performance. "That must have been very uncomfortable," Mr. Torino said with false sympathy. "Tell me, when you were cleaning the executive floor, did you notice anything unusual? Anyone who shouldn't have been there?" "No, sir. The offices were all empty when I was working. That's why I was so surprised when I started feeling sick. There was no one around to ask for help." The second man spoke for the first time. "Which offices did you clean before you became ill?" Sophia recited the list Vincent had helped her memorize, carefully omitting any mention of entering Vincent Romano's private office. I was working my way down the hall when the nausea hit. I barely made it to the ladies' room. And you didn't see or hear anything that seemed out of place? Mr. Torino pressed. No conversations. No people who shouldn't have been there? Nothing. The floor was completely quiet. Sophia allowed herself to look slightly confused. Is there a problem? Did something happen after I left? The two men exchanged glances that confirmed Sophia's worst fears. They suspected someone had overheard their meeting, and they were methodically checking every possible witness. No problem, Mr. Torino said smoothly. Just routine security protocols. We appreciate your cooperation. As the men prepared to leave, the smaller one turned back with an afterthought that made Sophia's skin crawl. Miss Jun, you mentioned you have a daughter. Lucy, isn't it? Yes. Sophia managed, understanding the implicit threat. Beautiful name. I hope she stays healthy and safe. The man's smile was predatory. Children can be so vulnerable in this city. After they left, Mrs. Patterson avoided eye contact as she mumbled something about returning to her regular duties. Sophia finished her shift on autopilot, her mind consumed with the terrifying realization that the Torinos had researched her family and were prepared to use Lucy as leverage. When she finally made it home at 6 a.m., Sophia found Vincent Romano sitting in his car outside her apartment building. "How did it go?" he asked as she got into the passenger seat. "They threatened Lucy," Sophia said, her voice breaking. "They know her name, probably know where she goes to school." Vincent's expression hardened. What exactly did they say? Sophia repeated the conversation, watching Vincent's face grow darker as she described the implied threat to her daughter. "We're moving faster than planned," Vincent said grimly. "I'm calling in federal protection for Lucy and your grandmother today." "What does that mean?" "It means armed agents watching your family 24/7 until this is over. It means changing Lucy's school routine and your grandmother's shopping patterns. It means living like prisoners until we can neutralize the threat." Sophia closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what her decision to help had unleashed. Maybe I should have chosen to disappear. Maybe, but it's too late for that now. Vincent's tone was gentle but realistic. The Torinos suspect you know something, which means running would only confirm their suspicions. Our best chance now is to finish this quickly and eliminate them before they can hurt your family. How quickly? Judge Martinez is scheduled to be killed this weekend. If we can prevent that and gather enough evidence to arrest the key players, this could be over within days. Vincent met her eyes. But that means pushing forward with the most dangerous part of the plan, which is making the Torinos believe you're exactly what they fear, a witness who can destroy them, and then using their attempts to eliminate you to catch them in the act. Sophia stared at him, understanding that he was proposing to use her as bait in a trap that could easily get her killed. "Will it work?" she asked. "If we're smart and lucky and nothing goes wrong," Vincent replied. "But I won't lie to you, the odds aren't great." Sophia thought about Lucy, innocently sleeping upstairs while federal agents prepared to take over their lives. She thought about Judge Martinez, a man she'd never met who would die if she lost her nerve. She thought about all the other potential victims who would suffer if the Torino organization continued operating. "When do we start?" she asked. Vincent's smile was grim but appreciative. "We already have." The federal protection for Lucy and Sophia's grandmother was established within hours, disguised as a routine upgrade to the apartment building security system. Armed agents posed as maintenance workers and building supervisors, creating an invisible shield around Sophia's family while she went about her normal routine. Vincent coordinated the operation from his corporate offices, using his legitimate business as cover for the massive law enforcement effort now focused on the Torino organization. Judge Martinez had been quietly informed of the threat against his life and agreed to cooperate with the plan to catch his would-be killers in the act. The strategy was elegantly simple in concept, but terrifyingly complex in execution. Sophia would continue working her cleaning shifts while wearing a wire, gathering evidence of the Torinos' criminal activities. When they inevitably tried to eliminate her as a potential witness, federal agents would be waiting to arrest them for attempted murder. "The key is making them believe you're getting suspicious," Vincent explained during one of their pre-dawn planning sessions. You need to ask questions that suggest you're putting pieces together, but not so obviously that they immediately decide to kill you. Sophia practiced her lines while federal technicians fitted her with recording equipment so sophisticated it was virtually undetectable. The wire would capture conversations that could be used as evidence, but it would also mark her for death if discovered. The first test came Thursday night, when Sophia encountered Mr. Torino again while cleaning the executive floor. This time, she was ready for him. "Mr. Torino," she said with carefully calculated nervousness, "I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday." "Oh, what about it?" "Well, you asked if I'd seen anything unusual, and I said no. But I keep wondering why you would ask that unless something bad had happened." Sophia let genuine worry color her voice. "Was there a break-in or something?" Mr. Torino studied her expression carefully. "What makes you think something bad happened?" "I don't know. Just the way you asked about Lucy, like you were warning me to be careful." Sophia took a breath and delivered the line Vincent had coached her on. "It reminded me of when my neighbor got mixed up with some drug dealers, and they started asking about her kids. That must have been frightening for your neighbor. They ended up having to move away because it wasn't safe." Sophia met his eyes directly. "I keep worrying that maybe I saw something I shouldn't have and don't even realize it." The hook was baited. Mr. Torino leaned forward with false concern. "What do you think you might have seen?" "I don't know. Maybe someone who shouldn't have been in the building? Maybe I walked past the conversation without really listening." Sophia shrugged helplessly. "I just keep thinking that if I'm in danger, I should know why." Mr. Torino was quiet for a long moment, clearly debating how to handle this development. Sophia could almost see him weighing the risks of letting a potential witness live against the complications of eliminating her. "Miss Chun," he said finally, "if you had heard something you shouldn't have, what would you do about it?" The question was a test, and Sophia's answer would determine whether she lived or died. Vincent had prepared her for this moment, drilling her on the response that might save her life. "I guess that would depend on what it was," she said carefully. "If it was something that could hurt my daughter or my grandmother, I'd probably want to make sure they were safe first." "That's very wise. Family should always come first." Mr. Torino's smile was calculating. "And if someone offered to help protect your family, what would you be willing to do in return?" Sophia understood she was being recruited. The Torinos wanted to control her rather than kill her, at least until they determined exactly what she knew. "I'd do whatever it took to keep them safe," she replied honestly. "Good. We should talk more about how to ensure your family's security." Mr. Torino handed her a business card. "Call this number tomorrow evening. We'll arrange a meeting to discuss your situation in detail." After he left, Sophia sat in the empty hallway, shaking with adrenaline and terror. The conversation had been recorded, providing evidence of the Torinos' attempt to intimidate a witness. But it had also committed her to a meeting that would either advance the investigation or get her killed. Vincent reviewed the recording with federal agents, their faces grim as they analyzed the implications. "They're trying to turn her into an asset," Agent Martinez explained. "They'll offer protection for her family in exchange for information about the investigation." "Which means they suspect there's an investigation," Vincent replied. "They're not just worried about a random witness. They know law enforcement is involved." "How could they know that?" "Corrupt contacts in the police department, federal agencies, or the judiciary. The Torinos have been buying officials for decades." Vincent's expression was troubled. "Which means our operation may be compromised." Sophia felt the walls closing around her. If the Torinos knew about the federal investigation, her role as an undercover witness had become exponentially more dangerous. "Can we pull out now?" she asked. "Call off the meeting and relocate my family?" "We could," Agent Martinez replied. "But we'd lose our best chance to gather the evidence needed to destroy their organization. And we might not be able to protect Judge Martinez." The moral weight of the decision crushed down on Sophia. She could save herself and her family by running, but Judge Martinez and future victims would pay the price for her safety. "What happens at the meeting tomorrow?" she asked. Vincent and Agent Martinez exchanged glances before Vincent answered. "They'll test your loyalty by asking you to provide information about the federal investigation. If you refuse, they'll threaten your family. If you agree, they'll eventually discover you're working with us and kill you anyway. So there's no way to win? There's one way, Vincent said quietly. We turn the meeting into a trap. You were a wire. We record their criminal solicitation, and we have agents positioned to arrest them when they make their move. What if something goes wrong? Vincent met her eyes with an honesty that was both reassuring and terrifying. Then I'll do everything in my power to get you out alive. Sophia looked around the room at the federal agents whose job was protecting people like her from criminals like the Torinos. She thought about Judge Martinez, whose only crime was trying to uphold the law. She thought about Lucy, whose future depended on whether the good guys won this particular battle between justice and corruption. When and where's the meeting? She asked. Vincent's expression combined admiration and regret. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m., at a warehouse on the south side. And Sophia, thank you. What you're doing could save dozens of lives. As Sophia prepared for what might be the last night of her life, she realized that her decision to stay late and clean Vincent Romano's office had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand. She was no longer just a cleaning lady trying to support her daughter. She was a key player in a fight for the soul of her city. The scared, invisible woman who'd hidden behind Vincent's desk just days ago was gone, replaced by someone willing to risk everything for strangers she'd never meet. Tomorrow night would determine whether that transformation had been worth the price. The warehouse district at night was a maze of shadows and empty buildings, the perfect location for conversations that couldn't happen in public. Sophia drove her modest sedan through streets lined with loading docks and freight containers, following GPS directions to a meeting that could either end the Torino threat or cost her everything she'd ever loved. Vincent and the federal team had spent hours planning every detail of the operation. Sophia wore a wire so sophisticated it was virtually undetectable, hidden in the lining of her jacket. Federal agents were positioned throughout the area with clear sight lines to the warehouse, ready to intervene if the situation turned violent. Remember, Vincent had told her during their final briefing, your job is to get them talking about their criminal activities while giving them enough information to believe you're cooperating. Don't be a hero if things go wrong. Hit the ground and let us handle it. Sophia parked outside the designated warehouse and checked her phone, 9:58 p.m. In 2 minutes, she would walk into a building controlled by people who killed witnesses as casually as most people order coffee. But she would also be carrying the hopes of everyone who believed that justice could triumph over corruption. The warehouse door was unlocked, leading into a vast space filled with shipping containers and construction equipment. Sophia's footsteps echoed in the cavernous interior as she walked toward a light source at the far end of the building. Mr. Torino waited for her in a small office area, flanked by 2 other men she didn't recognize. The setting was deliberately intimidating, isolated, controlled, designed to make her feel vulnerable and compliant. Miss Chun, thank you for coming, Mr. Torino said with false courtesy. I hope you didn't have any trouble finding us. No trouble, Sophia replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. Good. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Sophia took the indicated chair, acutely aware that she was now surrounded by armed criminals who wouldn't hesitate to kill her if they suspected betrayal. I've been thinking about our conversation last night, Mr. Torino began. You mentioned being worried about your family's safety. I want to help you with that concern. How? By ensuring that you and your daughter and your grandmother are completely protected from any threats that might arise from your proximity to sensitive business matters. Sophia understood the euphemism. They were offering protection from themselves in exchange for her cooperation. What kind of sensitive business matters? She asked, following Vince's instruction to get them talking about their criminal activities. The kind that required discretion and loyalty from everyone involved. Mr. Torino replied. Tell me, Miss Chin, what do you know about Vincent Romano's business operations? The question confirmed Sophia's worst fears. They suspected Vincent was more than just a legitimate businessman, and they wanted her to provide information about the federal investigation. I know he owns import and export companies, Sophia said carefully. I've seen meetings with people from shipping companies and customs officials. What about meetings with law enforcement officials, FBI agents, federal prosecutors, people who might be investigating local business activities? Sophia's pulse spiked as she realized how much the Torinos already knew about the federal operation. They weren't fishing for information. They were testing whether she would tell them the truth about what she'd witnessed. "I've seen some people who might have been law enforcement," she admitted, knowing that denying obvious facts would only make them suspicious. "Can you describe these people? Names, faces, what they discussed?" This was the moment Vincent had prepared her for, the point where she had to provide enough information to maintain her cover while protecting the federal investigation. "There was a woman who looked like an FBI agent," Sophia said. "Dark suit, badge, very official. And a man who might have been a prosecutor. He had that lawyer look, you know." "What did they discuss with Mr. Romano?" "I don't know. I only saw them in the elevator in the lobby. I wasn't close enough to hear their conversations." Sophia let frustration color her voice. "That's what's been worrying me. I keep wondering if I'm in trouble for being in the building when they were there." Mr. Torino leaned forward, his tone becoming more aggressive. "Miss Chun, I think you're not being entirely honest with us. We have reason to believe you overheard a very specific conversation that could be damaging to certain business interests." Sophia's heart hammered as she realized they knew about the meeting she'd witnessed, but she had to maintain her cover story even as the noose tightened around her. "I don't know what conversation you mean," she said. "I told you I was sick that night and left early. But before you left, you spent time in Mr. Romano's office. You heard him meeting with people who discuss business matters that don't concern you." "I was cleaning his office. I didn't hear any business discussions." Mr. Torino's patience was clearly running out. He nodded to one of his associates, who produced a tablet computer and turned it toward Sophia. On the screen was a photograph of Lucy walking into her school, taken that morning. "Beautiful little girl," Mr. Torino said conversationally. "So innocent, so trusting. It would be terrible if something happened to her, because her mother wasn't being truthful with people who were trying to help." Sophia's control snapped at the sight of her daughter being threatened. "Don't you dare touch her. That's entirely up to you, Miss Chun. Your daughter's safety depends on your willingness to cooperate with us. What do you want? The truth. All of it. What you heard, what you know, what you told anyone about it." Sophia realized she'd reached a point of no return. The Torinos knew she'd overheard their planning session, and they weren't going to let her leave alive unless she gave them what they wanted. But telling them the truth would expose a federal investigation and probably get Vincent killed. "I heard you talking about Judge Martinez," she said quietly, hoping the wire was capturing every word. "You were planning to kill him this weekend." Mr. Torino's expression didn't change. "What else?" "Something about a shipment at the harbor, and bribing police officers and city officials." "Did you tell anyone about this conversation?" This was the moment that would determine whether she lived or died. Sophia took a deep breath and made her choice. "No," she lied. "I was too scared." Mr. Torino studied her face for several long seconds, looking for signs of deception. "I think you're lying to me, Miss Chun. I think you've told someone about what you heard, and that someone is planning to use that information against us." "I swear I haven't told anyone." "We'll see about that." Mr. Torino nodded to his associates. "Take her to the back room. We'll continue this conversation after she's had some time to think about her daughter's welfare." The two men moved toward Sophia, clearly intending to take her somewhere more private, where they could use enhanced interrogation techniques. She realized with crystal clarity that Vincent and the federal agents outside were about to lose track of her, and once that happened, she would disappear forever. "Wait," she said, playing her last card. "I did tell someone." Mr. Torino held up a hand, stopping his men. "Who?" "Vincent Romano. I told him what I heard because I was scared and didn't know what else to do." The admission was both truth and lies, designed to protect the federal investigation while giving the Torinos information they could act on. "What did Romano say when you told him?" "He said he would handle it, that I should keep quiet and let him deal with the situation." Mr. Torino's expression shifted to something that might have been satisfaction. "So Romano knows about our plans." "Yes, and he's probably planning to interfere with our operations." Sophia nodded, understanding that she just painted Vincent as a target while potentially saving her own life. "Miss Chun, you've been very helpful," Mr. Torino said. "More helpful than you realize." Before Sophia could respond, the warehouse lights went out, and the building filled with the sound of federal agents shouting commands. "FBI! Everyone on the ground! Now!" In the chaos that followed, Sophia threw herself to the floor as muzzle flashes lit up the darkness and automatic weapons fire echoed through the building. She heard Mr. Torino cursing and his men returning fire, but the federal agents had overwhelming tactical advantage. The firefight lasted less than 2 minutes before ending in the surrender of the surviving Torino associates. When the lights came back on, Sophia found Vincent kneeling beside her, his face tight with concern. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "I don't think so," Sophia managed, her ears still ringing from the gunfire. "You did perfectly," Vincent said. "We got everything we needed to destroy their organization." As federal agents secured the scene and arrested the surviving criminals, Sophia realized that her ordeal was finally over. The Wire had captured detailed confessions of murder conspiracy, bribery, and racketeering. Judge Martinez would live to continue his work, and the Torino organization was finished. But as she watched the body bags being loaded into coroners' vans, Sophia understood that her life would never be the same. She'd seen too much, done too much, changed too much to ever go back to being an invisible cleaning lady. The question now was what she would become instead. 3 months after the warehouse confrontation, Sophia sat in the federal courthouse watching the last of the Torino organization members receive their sentences. The conspiracy she'd helped expose had resulted in 47 arrests, including corrupt officials in the police department, harbor authority, and mayor's office. Judge Martinez, the man whose life she'd saved, had personally thanked her during the sentencing hearing. "Miss Chun, your courage prevented my murder and exposed a level of corruption that was poisoning our entire justice system. This city owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid." Vincent sat beside her in the courtroom, no longer needing to maintain his cover as a legitimate businessman with criminal connections. His work with the federal task force had earned him a civilian commendation and offers to continue consulting on organized crime investigations. "How does it feel to be a hero?" he asked quietly as they watched the final defendant led away in handcuffs. "Like I want to go home and hug my daughter," Sophia replied honestly. Lucy had adapted to their temporary life under federal protection with the resilience of childhood, treating the whole experience as an adventure rather than a threat. Sophia's grandmother had been less adaptable, grumbling about the disruption to her routine while secretly enjoying the attention from the handsome federal agents assigned to protect her. Now that the threat was over, they could return to something resembling normal life. But Sophia had discovered that she had no interest in returning to her old routine of cleaning offices and taking night classes while struggling to make ends meet. The federal government had offered substantial compensation for her role in the investigation, enough money to finish her education without working multiple jobs. Vincent had offered her a position with his legitimate business operations, managing security and risk assessment for companies with international operations. "I've been thinking about your job offer," Sophia said as they left the courthouse. "And I want to accept it, but with conditions." Vincent smiled, unsurprised by her negotiating stance. "What conditions?" "I want to work on cases that matter, investigations that protect people who can't protect themselves. I don't want to spend my life helping rich people get richer. That can be arranged. The federal task force is always looking for civilians with your particular skills and experience." "What skills?" "I'm a cleaning lady who accidentally overheard a criminal conspiracy." Vincent stopped walking and turned to face her directly. "Sophia, you're a woman who risked everything to save a stranger's life. You successfully maintained cover while surrounded by killers who suspected you of betraying them. You gathered evidence that destroyed a criminal organization that had been operating with impunity for decades. I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. You have more courage than most federal agents I've worked with." As they walked toward Vincent's car, Sophia reflected on how completely her life had changed since that night she cleaned the wrong office at the wrong time. She'd gone from invisible to indispensable, from victim to victor, from someone who cleaned up other people's messes to someone who helped solve problems that mattered. "Vincent," she said as they reached the parking garage, "what would have happened if I'd chosen to run that first night? If I'd taken the witness protection and disappeared? Judge Martinez would be dead. The Torino organization would still be operating. Dozens of other people would have been murdered to protect their criminal empire." Vincent's expression was serious. "Your decision to stay and fight saved more lives than you'll ever know. And what about us? If I'd run, would we have ever seen each other again?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, considering question. "Probably not. You would have been relocated somewhere far from here, and I would have continued my undercover work until the investigation concluded. So, we never would have had the chance to become friends. Is that what we are? Friends?" Sophia realized she'd been avoiding this conversation for weeks, unsure how to categorize her feelings for the man who'd saved her life, while asking her to risk everything for strangers. "I don't know," she admitted. "What are we?" Vincent stopped beside his car and turned to face her fully. "I know what I'd like us to be, which is partners in the work we're going to do together, in the life we could build together, in everything that matters." Sophia stared at him, understanding that he was offering her more than just a job or friendship. He was offering her a future that she'd never dared to imagine, one where she mattered, where her choices made a difference, where she could be part of something larger than survival. "What about Lucy and my grandmother?" "They're part of the package. I'm not just falling in love with you, Sophia. I'm falling in love with your family, your courage, your values, everything that makes you who you are." The words hung in the air between them, an admission that changed everything while somehow feeling inevitable. "Vincent," Sophia said carefully, "I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person who was cleaning your office 3 months ago. I've changed, and I'm still changing. I don't know who I'm going to become." "I'm counting on it," Vincent replied. "The woman who hid behind my desk was brave enough to risk everything for justice. I can't wait to see what the woman who faced down killers is going to accomplish next." 6 months later, Sophia completed her bachelor's degree while working part-time for Vincent's consulting firm and the federal task force. Lucy started second grade at a private school where her mother's new career in criminal justice consulting was respected rather than pitted. Sophia's grandmother had initially been skeptical of Vincent, but his patient attention to her stories and genuine appreciation for her traditional cooking had won her over completely. "He's a good man," she told Sophia, "and he looks at you like you hung the moon." The engagement ring Vincent gave Sophia was simple and elegant, reflecting her taste rather than his wealth. The proposal came during a quiet dinner at home, with Lucy and her grandmother as witnesses to commitment that formalized what they'd all known for months. "Are you going to be my daddy now?" Lucy asked Vincent after he'd slipped the ring onto Sophia's finger. "If you'll have me," Vincent replied seriously. "Can I call you Daddy Vincent?" "You can call me whatever feels right to you." As Sophia watched her daughter negotiate the terms of their new family structure with a man who would help save their lives, she marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. She'd started as an invisible cleaning lady working multiple jobs to survive. She'd become a federal witness who'd helped destroy a criminal organization. Now she was a consultant who specialized in cases that protected innocent people from those who would exploit them. But most importantly, she'd become someone who'd proven that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they found the courage to act on their convictions. The scared woman who'd hidden behind Vincent Romano's desk was gone, replaced by someone who faced danger head-on and won. As Sophia looked at her engagement ring and the family gathering around their dinner table, she realized that sometimes the most profound changes began with the simplest mistakes. She cleaned the wrong office at the wrong time and found her destiny. In trying to save a stranger's life, she discovered her own purpose. And in falling in love with a man who'd asked her to risk everything, she found a future she'd never dared to dream of. The cleaning lady was gone forever, but the woman who'd taken her place was just getting started.